Hi, I'm Tony Russo, and this is In Case You Missed It from Kates-Boylston for the week ending Friday, October 31st, 2025. Happy Halloween. Just real quick, if you are watching on YouTube, you've noticed the video hasn't kicked in yet. There were technical difficulties. Let me just say that. So we're all audio this week, but we're also in earnest. Tons of fun stuff to get to. This is a happy corrections episode. We have a couple things that I got to get straight right from the start. But before we get to all that fun stuff, let's listen to this message from our friends and sponsors at Matthews Aurora.
For more than 20 years, Matthews Aurora Funeral Solutions has been providing innovative technology to support funeral professionals and their families. Their Arranger presentation system makes showcasing service and merchandise options simple. Family Connections technology enables families to participate in arrangement planning from the comfort of home. And the Advisor system combines case management and interactive planning, all in one place. Simplify the arrangement process with technology designed for you. Visit MatthewsAurora.com for a free demo or call 1-800-457-111 today. That's MatthewsAurora.com or 1-800-457-1111. Call today.
So they say when you make a mistake, you're not supposed to say the mistake that you made in the corrections, and I'm not going to, but I was very excited to report on Carriage last week, but I got a number wrong. So for the record, since October of 2021, Carriage has paid a quarterly dividend of $0.1125 per share. The company is still set to present its earnings on November 5th, next Wednesday, as this comes out, and I will cover that, and I will get all the numbers right, and then I will double check them. Another correction that I'd like to make, and this is from several weeks ago, I was doing a story about Minnesota's peculiar, I guess, phobias about having green cemeteries, and I mentioned that Matt Connell had been forced out finally by the people that I will just say are the bad guys in this situation, and those are the folks from Carleton County. However, reports of Matt's demise were premature, and in fact, this week, as I report this, he and our friend Ed Bixby from Stillmantown Cemetery have filed a federal suit against pretty much anybody with an address in Carleton County. I just got this into my hands yesterday as I record this on Thursday, October 30th, so I'm still kind of digging around in it, but the accusations are extensive. And if you think that I was maybe a little unfair in my painting of the folks at Carleton County and their, I guess, fetishized bias against natural burial, you should see the court filings. So over the last, 3 years, I guess it's been, Matt and his wife have been taking notes at the various county meetings. And not only that, but also putting together, video clips or, downloading the videos when they are made public. And as a result, they've kind of collected every hypocritical thing that the council has said about the natural burial process and about Matt himself, and they have listed all of them in the complaint. Hopefully, this will do it. Hopefully, the grown-ups now will step in where the Minnesota legislature was unwilling or unable, and say that if you build a cemetery on a place that's zoned for a cemetery, you can have a cemetery there, even if it makes a couple of people who would rather see McMansions on that empty spot a little bit miffed. But we'll be following this again. I'll probably have a feature on this out in late this year or early next year because there's a lot of stuff to go through, and I want to make sure I get it right. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, it is earnings season, and I have just, as I'm recording, finished listening to the Service Corporation International earnings report, and SCI reported strong results for the third quarter ended September 2025. It beat expectations on both the top and bottom lines, and the company posted revenue of 1.06 billion, which was 1.6% higher than the estimates, and it was a 4.4% increase year over year. And on the EPS side, same thing. It was 87 cents, which was almost 5%, 4.82% higher than the 83-cent consensus. And we have a full report in the November 6th edition of Funeral Service Insider, the newsletter, so subscribers can check that out there. And actually, I guess this is a good time to mention that FSI is free for the month of November. So listeners and non-listeners alike, you can get, looks like I'm going to be doing a lot of earnings reports this month, but it'll be a good chance to see what it's like to get some of the things that you listen here expanded upon in the newsletter. Next up, there's kind of an interesting story out of Hawaii. A gentleman had asked what happened to his wife's, hip when she was cremated, and first the funeral home said, "Well, it's donated," and the man said, "Well, donated to who?" And they're like, "Well, it's recycled," and he didn't. Either they didn't explain well, or he didn't understand well, but whatever the case, he has now appealed to the local legislature to get it fixed, and he's looking for regulation of the entire recycling process. Now, I know this is a funeral home by funeral home kind of thing, but we did do a story last week or the week before about, doing those big announcements and saying, hey, this huge check that we just donated to this great cause is a combination of a little bit of the recycling money from all of the people who have chosen to let us serve their families. Now, one might expect that that would be the end of it. So I don't understand what the fight in Hawaii is about. This is something that came out on October 30th, again, as I was recording. So this man's notions did not pass in the first legislative look that was added, but there has been a working group convened. And I guess I'll follow the working group. And if there's anything worth letting you know, I will. In the meantime, two little reminders. The first, promote yourself when you say you recycle and let everyone know all the good that the money that you're able to get from recycling brings to the community. And number two, we are having a cremation strategies virtual event on November 18th, and we would love to have you there. There will be a link in the show notes to register, and they're going to be talking about things like recycling and temperature and taking good care of your retort and all the things that you need to know if you run a crematory. So link to that in the show notes. There was another report this week on trouble at a military funeral or trouble getting a military funeral done, and everything got worked out, and I shared the story, and there's a link in the show notes. But the story ran coincidentally this week when I had been reaching out to the Veterans Affairs Department about national cemeteries. I was trying to do something on the Black Hills National Cemetery where I had been to take photos this summer. And, ironically, I had been on my way to pick up my daughter who, is no longer with the Department of Agriculture. So I went to speak with the Department of Veterans Affairs, specifically the Cemetery Department of Veterans Affairs, and I talked to a person on their last day who said, essentially, well, we don't know quite what's going on, and now I'm going home for a foreseeable future. So just a gentle reminder that if you are having trouble getting military services done, you can reach out to your local VFW and also to your local American Legion. I know that in previous instances, they've been able to help out, and hopefully they will be able to help out here. And if your cemetery or funeral home or anything is having problems related to the shutdown and you find a way around it and you'd like to share it with everybody else, we would love to help you share it. So you can reach out to me. Again, you can find my email in the show notes. There is nothing like a great quote. This is the, I guess, reporter in me. When somebody says just the coolest thing, it's nice to be able to be there to write it down. And there was a fun story this week, as fun as an awful, terrible, tragic story could be, about a young man who was killed in upstate New York on October 4th. So on the way to the cemetery, he was in a casket in a horse-drawn carriage. And on the way to the cemetery, they asked the driver to pull over by his basketball court where the guy liked to play basketball. And asked afterwards, the funeral director, Thomas Gainey of Angel Hills Funeral Chapel, they said, what did you do? And they said, pull over. And he pulled over and he let them take the casket out. And they had like a little parade in they called it the cage, in this basketball court that he liked to play in. And afterwards, the funeral director said, you entrust your loved one to me. You didn't give your loved one to me. A person can do whatever they want with their loved one. And I think that's a great attitude. And it's worth kind of celebrating this idea that when a family asks something, if it can be done, it ought to be done. And I don't think that that's news to anyone who's listening, but it's always, like I said, cool to celebrate someone who, walks the walk. And finally, I don't know, this kind of reads like a hit piece, but it's also informative. So, there's a link in the show notes. You can check it out for yourself. But there was a story about consolidation in funeral homes. And the reason it felt like a hit piece is it opened up with all of, the common things that you hear about how SCI is driving up funeral prices and consolidators drive up funeral prices. And it provides all these numbers that have been given by these funeral consumer protection groups. But what caught my attention and what made it feel like a hit piece is, after they laid out all of these, troubling things that have been attributed to SCI and to larger consolidators, they went on to talk about how Milestone was, buying up all of Western Massachusetts or something like that. And it's funny because it's it's something I reported on a couple of weeks ago, I think, maybe in early fall or late summer. I had an interview where Milestone talked about its recent partnership with venture capital and its plans to expand throughout the New England area. But one of the things that they talked about in the story that I wrote was that, they want to make sure that they can keep it close so that they are able to keep prices down and to serve families better and to provide their employees a better kind of, quality of life. The story, and again, I'll put a link to it in the show notes, also kind of goes back through the history and lists all of the different, mergers and acquisitions. And, it talks about the Lowen Group, but it also mentions, homesteaders and Park Lawn as this, new consolidator force to be reckoned with. So it's not like it's a naive story. It was slanted in a way that I felt was more alarmist than it needed to be, but I could be way off base here. I mean, as someone who spends, a significant amount of his time talking to both independent funeral home owners and people who work in the corporate world, the biggest concern, I think, is that consolidation might not be sufficient. There is, and we've reported on this before, the real possibility of serious funeral deserts, death care deserts, I guess, in rural America. And, we say this all the time, and I'll say it again. This industry is going to look so much different in another decade. And when you see the consolidators making these purchases, and sometimes, funeral homes need to be shuttered. Sometimes the demand is just not there. I've done several stories of people who have just walked away. We have hopefully another one coming up in the next couple of weeks. And when you get to the point where just walking away is one of the things that people who own funeral homes find themselves in a position of having to do, it'll be interesting to see how, smaller communities survive, and how, when a consolidator has several of the same funeral homes in the same area, how they're able to, reach out and get these things done. And that will do it for this time. In case you missed it, From Kates-Boylston is a Kates-Boylston production. It was written and edited by me, Tony Russo. Please subscribe wherever you're listening now. And if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, criticisms, queries, anything but a rock through my front window, I'd be perfectly happy to have. You can reach me at my email address. It is arusso@kbpublications.com. Follow the link in the show notes, and then you'll find yourself in a position to just click on my email address. For those of you just back from the convention, take your time and get yourself back together and get ready for a big week next week. And for those of you who stayed home, well, enjoy your weekend too. I'm going to enjoy mine, and I will check in with you next time.